All right, so we're diving into Olga Tokarczuk's Flights today.
Okay.
And just a heads up, this isn't your typical novel,
Right.
beginning, middle, and end. It's more like
Yeah, more like a kaleidoscope almost.
yeah, like these little snapshots into different lives. And they're all connected by these themes of travel and the body and what it even means to be human in a world that's always moving.
And it's interesting how that fragmented style kind of mirrors the feeling of displacement itself.
Exactly.
It's like we as readers are experiencing that alongside the characters.
Totally. And I think one of the most striking ways she does this is through this fictional condition that she introduces called recurrent detoxification syndrome.
Oh, yeah?
Have you ever felt this like overwhelming urge to just get away?
Uh-huh.
Like a pressure building up inside you?
It's more than wanderlust, though, right?
Right.
It's this anxiety that starts to build almost like a physical symptom.
Yeah.
And it culminates in this impulsive need to travel to escape.
And the thing is, with this syndrome, reaching a destination brings this temporary relief, a sense of belonging.
Yeah, like you finally exhaled.
Yes.
But then it fades and the cycle starts all over again.
It does, and it's this relentless cycle of seeking and never quite finding. This constant feeling of being out of sync with your surroundings.
Right. And it's like a metaphor for these deeper anxieties of displacement that so many people experience,
Absolutely.
whether it's literal or just emotional.
And speaking of which, let's talk about Anushka. This Ukrainian woman living in Moscow, Tokarczuk, really paints this vivid picture of her feeling trapped
Right.
and overwhelmed by the city.
Do you remember that description of the Moscow metro as this like devouring abyss? It's not just random imagery. It speaks to how she's feeling consumed by the city.
Yeah.
Like it's swallowing her whole.
Yeah, I felt that claustrophobia just reading it.
That sense of being lost and insignificant. It's a
Yeah.
classic symptom of displacement.
And then there's that scene with the woman wandering in the city shrouded in fabric.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talk about a visual representation of feeling alienated and out of place.
Right. She's almost a physical manifestation of Anushka's internal state.
Right.
They're both seeking escape, trying to break free from these constraints of society
Yeah.
and the expectations, the pressure to conform.
It's so powerful how she shows that displacement can be both internal and external.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of how so many real-life migrants and refugees talk about feeling invisible in their new environments, like ghosts.
Yeah.
Almost that sense of not belonging, of being caught between two worlds.
That's what Tokarczuk does so well.
Yeah.
She takes this fictional condition and it taps into this universal feeling of displacement that I think so many people can relate to.
Okay.
Whether you physically migrated across countries or just felt that inner turmoil of not quite fitting in. Her story speaks to that shared human experience.
Okay, so now shifting gears a bit, let's talk about Kuniki. His experience is obviously different from Anushka's. His wife and child vanish while they're on vacation, and he's consumed by this frantic search for them, both physically combing the island and mentally retracing their steps.
And even though he doesn't have recurrent detoxification syndrome,
Right.
his story still echoes those core themes of displacement.
It does.
They're both driven by this profound sense of loss and this desperate need to find something.
Yeah.
For Kuniki, it's answers and resolution. For those with the syndrome, it's belonging and relief from their inner turmoil.
And there's this one passage that really stood out to me. Kuniki imagines a tracking system for all humans.
Wow.
Like he wants to see every person's movement mapped out.
That's interesting.
What do you make of that?
Well, on one hand, you could see it as a desire for control. This way to make sense of this seemingly chaotic world where people are constantly coming and going. But it also makes you think about our deeper anxieties about displacement itself. Like, is tracking everyone a way to solve the problem of migration? Or is it this yearning to understand these larger patterns of human movement to find some kind of order in the seeming chaos?
It's almost like he's searching for a solution to his own personal displacement by trying to map everyone else's.
Exactly.
But as we know with flights, Tokarczuk doesn't really offer easy answers.
And she's also pretty critical of maps and guidebooks in general. There's this idea that the very act of labeling and categorizing a place can actually diminish its mystery, its power to surprise us.
It's like when a guidebook tells you exactly what to think about a place before you even get there.
Yeah.
Kind of ruins the whole experience.
Exactly.
Like reading spoilers for a movie.
Tokarczuk is much more interested in that sense of discovery.
Right.
That feeling of getting lost and finding your own way.
Yeah.
And that's where the real meaning comes from, not from some prepackaged narrative.
Which brings us back to recurrent detoxification syndrome.
Okay.
It's like Tokarczuk is saying, hey, maybe this constant need to move, to escape, to find something new,
Yeah.
maybe that's not a problem to be solved,
Right.
but a fundamental part of what it means to be human.
Right. And that ties into this bigger question that she seems to be wrestling with.
What's that?
What does it even mean to have a body
Okay.
in a world that's constantly in motion?
There's a big question.
How do we reconcile our need for stability, for roots, with this inherent drive to explore, to change, to become something new?
That's a pretty deep question.
It is.
It's making me think about all the different ways we experience displacement,
Yeah.
not just geographically, but emotionally, intellectually,
Yeah.
even spiritually.
Exactly. Think about all those times you've felt like you've outgrown a place, a job, a relationship.
Right.
That feeling of restlessness, of needing to move on, it's a kind of displacement too.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about characters who are literally on the move.
Yeah.
Like Anushka and Kuniki. But Tokarczuk also explores this theme through characters who are grappling with a different kind of displacement.
Okay.
A displacement from their own bodies.
Like Philip Verheyen,
Yeah.
the 17th century anatomist who becomes obsessed with his own amputated leg.
He's constantly dissecting it, analyzing it,
Yeah.
trying to understand this part of himself that's been separated from him.
Right.
It's almost like he's trying to map the terrain of his own being.
Yeah.
Like he's lost a piece of his internal map and he's desperately trying to redraw it.
It's a powerful metaphor for how we try to make sense of our own bodies, our own identities, even after they've been fragmented or altered by experience.
Right.
It speaks to that deep human need for wholeness, even when we feel incomplete or displaced from ourselves.
And you know, it's interesting how Verheyen's story connects back to Kuniki's obsession with mapping human movement.
Yeah.
They're both trying to impose order on something that's inherently fluid and chaotic.
Right.
The human body, the human experience.
And just like Kuniki's imagined tracking system, Verheyen's meticulous dissections might be missing the point.
What do you mean?
Maybe it's not about controlling or defining the body,
Okay.
but about embracing its complexity, its impermanence,
Right.
its capacity for change and transformation.
Right. It's like Tokarczuk is saying, stop trying to pin everything down.
Yeah.
Stop trying to force things into neat little categories.
Embrace the messiness, the movement,
Yeah.
the constant state of becoming.
And that's where the real beauty lies.
Right.
Not in trying to freeze time or control everything,
Yeah.
but in allowing ourselves to be swept along by the currents of life, to be transformed by our experiences.
Even the painful ones.
This whole conversation is making me rethink my whole approach to travel.
Really?
It's not just about checking things off a list.
right.
Tokarczuk makes it sound more like a philosophy.
A way of being in the world.
Yeah.
And a way of being open to change, to being uncomfortable, to challenging what you think you know.
It reminds me of that image of the shrouded woman in Moscow, how she said, "Blessed is he who leaves."
Right.
It's like a call to break free from all those things that hold us back, both physically and mentally.
It's such a potent image of liberation.
Yeah.
This rejection of societal norms and a commitment to living life on her own terms.
And it makes you think about how we often equate stability and rootedness with positive things.
Right.
But maybe there's also beauty and value in movement, in the constant state of becoming.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we find our true selves, in that space between destinations. Like when you're traveling and you're in a totally new place, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and sounds.
Yeah.
There's that sense of disorientation,
Mm-hmm.
but also this strange sense of possibility, like anything could happen.
Right. That feeling of being untethered from your usual routines and expectations, even your sense of self.
And in that space of not knowing, of being open to the unknown.
That's where the real magic happens.
Totally.
The magic of travel and maybe even life itself.
It's like Tokarczuk is giving us permission to get lost, both literally and figuratively.
Let go of our need for certainty. Embrace that fluidity of experience.
And that brings us back to recurrent detoxification syndrome.
Yeah.
It's not just about the physical act of travel, but about that psychological need to break free from those internal constraints that keep us feeling stuck,
Yay.
displaced.
Exactly.
So maybe it's not about finding the perfect destination,
Okay.
but about embracing the journey itself, the constant movement, the seeking, the becoming.
It's like what we were saying earlier about her writing style.
Okay.
It's not linear, it's fragmented, it's constantly shifting perspectives.
And that's what makes it so captivating.
Right.
It mirrors the way we actually experience the world in these messy, interconnected fragments.
She's throwing all these pieces of a puzzle at us.
Yeah.
These stories, these characters, these ideas, and it's up to us to figure out how they fit together.
And like a puzzle, the real satisfaction comes from the process of discovery.
Yeah, those aha moments.
Yes.
When you finally see how the pieces connect.
There's one passage that really stuck with me where Tokarczuk talks about travel as a form of purging the map.
Oh, wow.
She says, if something hurts me, I erase it from my mental map.
So she's creating her own personal geography.
Right.
A world where she can move freely, unburdened by the weight of past traumas or painful memories.
And she's not just talking about physical places.
Right.
It's about letting go of those internal landscapes that hold us back, those limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
the negative self-talk.
We have the power to shape our own realities.
Yes.
To redraw our internal maps in a way that supports our growth and well-being.
This whole conversation is making me think about flights as more than just a book.
Really?
It's like a guide to navigating the complexities of human experience.
Yeah.
A reminder that it's okay to feel lost, to be in a constant state of flux, to embrace the unknown.
And maybe that's ultimately what she's trying to tell us.
What's that?
That displacement isn't something to be feared or avoided,
Okay.
but a natural part of the human condition.
It's in those spaces between destinations,
Right.
in the act of seeking and becoming, that we discover our true selves. So if you're feeling a little lost or displaced yourself, I highly recommend checking out Flights.
It might just give you the permission you need to embrace the journey and find your own way.
And remember, getting lost is often the best way to find yourself. Well said.
Thanks.
It seems like we've reached the end of our deep dive into Olga Tokarczuk's Flights. We've explored themes of displacement, belonging, the power of storytelling, and so much more. Hopefully this has given you some new insights into this remarkable book, and maybe even inspired you to embark on your own journey of discovery, whether it's through literature travel or simply by opening yourself up to new experiences. Until next time, happy exploring.